Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show where we take the source materials you share with us and, well, we distill them down into real, actionable insight.
And today we are tackling a goal that is shared by millions and millions of people. I'm talking about achieving real, spontaneous fluency in English. And our sources today are just fantastic. They are practical, no-nonsense guides, and they're made specifically for beginners.
Right, for those people who are tired of, knowing all the grammar rules but still freezing up the moment it's time to actually speak.
That's it, exactly.
So our listener is really looking for a shortcut. Not, a shortcut to fluency itself, because we all know that takes time and effort.
Of course.
But a shortcut to the methods, the effective learning methods. They feel that frustration that so many people face. They can pass a test. They have the vocabulary.
They know the words.
But the moment a real conversation starts, that ability to speak just, poof, it vanishes. So it's that application gap that we're really focusing on today.
And that gap, for many people, it feels like a chasm. It's huge. But the guide we've synthesized today offers a really elegant solution, and it's low time commitment.
Okay, that's key.
It is. It structures the whole process around 3 powerful interlinked techniques. First, training your mind to think directly in English.
Right.
Second, refining your input, what you hear, through something called slow listening.
Slow listening, okay.
And third, forcing that immediate, confident output through a practice called shadowing.
So our mission for this deep dive is to break down this powerful trifecta. We want to define the science behind why they actually work, and then, most importantly, extract a completely realistic daily routine, something that builds confidence, a 20 to 30-minute blueprint that can turn that passive understanding into active, smooth, natural speech.
It's all about cognitive engineering, really. We're looking at simple advice that can fundamentally restructure how your brain is processing the language.
Moving it away from that slow translation process.
Yeah, exactly. Away from laborious translation and towards spontaneous automaticity. It should just happen.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, if the hesitation is coming from the brain having to do too much work, then we need to streamline that whole process.
Yes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right at the foundation, the biggest obstacle for nearly every single beginner, which the sources so expertly call the translation trap.
Ah, the translation trap. It really is the silent killer of confidence.
The silent killer.
It is. It's the single biggest thing that gets in the way of fluency, and this is a global thing. It's especially true for adult learners, whose native language is just so deeply established.
Or if their mother tongue has a completely different grammatical structure to English.
Yes, exactly. That makes it even harder.
And the sources are so specific about the mechanism, about how it works.
Yeah.
The core problem is that your internal monologue, your subconscious self-talk, it always defaults to your native tongue. Yeah. So when you try to say something in English, it's not just one step.
No, it's not. It becomes this grueling 3-part intellectual relay race inside your head.
A relay race. That's a good way to put it.
Well, the process starts with the thought, right? The idea or the feeling. And it's generated in the native language. Our source gives a specific example from Hindi.
Right.
The thought is, hella, 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 which means, I want to learn English. That's step 1.
Okay, so that's the idea in your head. Then comes the dreaded step 2.
Yes. This is where the learner has to pause. They have to mentally search for every single English word. They have to do a conscious grammar check.
Like, should I use to here? Is this the right verb tense? All that stuff.
All of that. And they're trying to assemble the sentence using rules they learned from a book.
And only after all of that mental scrambling, which can take several seconds,
which feels like an eternity in a conversation.
Only then do you get to step 3, which is actually producing the sound.
Yeah.
And by the time that happens, the moment is just gone.
It's gone. The person you're talking to has moved on, or worse, you've become so aware of the delay that your nervousness just spikes.
And that delayed response is what you call the cognitive drag. You said it's an information processing bottleneck. Can you break that down in simpler terms? Why is it so taxing?
Okay, think of your brain like a high-performance computer. When you speak in your native language, you're running one program. It's efficient, it's streamlined. The moment you start translating,
you're running two programs.
Exactly. You're running two highly complex programs at the same time. You have the native language idea generator and the English dictionary and grammar converter.
And that forces your brain's processor, your consciousness, to use all its energy on converting, not on creating.
Precisely. It causes the whole system to lag. It's like having a really slow Wi-Fi connection for your brain.
And that lag, that's what we see as hesitation. Maybe stuttering or just visible anxiety on someone's face.
Yes. And what happens next is a defense mechanism. The brain sees this process as slow and confusing. It often associates it with, negative feelings like failure or embarrassment.
So it tells the learner, this is too hard, just stop, shut down the output.
And that's why people will stop speaking even when they know the words. It's the mechanism of translation that's painful, not the language itself.
So the whole goal is to eliminate the middleman. We need to create a direct link between the idea, the concept, and the English word.
That's it. You have to establish those direct neural links. And the way to do it, to make that shift, is to decide that when a basic thought occurs, it is formulated directly in English, no filter.
And the source material is very clear.
Yeah.
You have to start small, very small, and immediate.
Yes. Start with your immediate physical states. If you feel hungry, the internal thought should not be the translated phrase.
It should just be the instant link to, I am hungry.
Exactly. Or if you're exhausted after a long day, the primary thought should be, I am tired.
So this is not about trying to have a complex debate in your head on day one.
No, absolutely not. It is about creating these little linguistic micro habits for your daily observations and needs.
That seems so crucial. I think a lot of learners try to translate some big academic idea, they fail, and then they assume the whole technique is just too hard for them.
But the guide is insisting you start with, I am happy, or I see a blue car. Simple observations.
And those simple affirmations are the whole foundation. If you start making these instant English observations about your environment and your feelings,
you train the brain to treat English as a functional tool for your own internal processing, not just as an academic subject that you need to translate.
And the payoff, as the sources say, is a huge boost in confidence.
Huge, because when you remove that translation layer, you eliminate the biggest mechanical reason for stuttering and delay. You start to sound smooth, even if your vocabulary is still very simple.
Because confidence in speaking is really just a byproduct of speed and smoothness, isn't it?
It often is, yes. If you can say a simple sentence quickly and clearly, you sound confident. If you say a very complex, grammatically perfect sentence, but there's a 5-second delay,
you sound hesitant.
You sound hesitant. So this process, thinking in English, is the key to unlocking that essential speed. This is the first pillar. It prepares your brain for high-quality input.
Which moves us perfectly into the second pillar, which is all about the quality of that input. Listening. Because if you are trying to think in English, you need to have the right English data in your brain to pull from. And the sources highlight a really common mistake that learners make here.
It's the desire for aspiration over acquisition. It's very understandable. Learners want to immediately consume advanced content, native speed movies, fast interviews.
They think this is the fastest way to get better.
But the result, as the guide points out, is catastrophic. They listen, and they only understand maybe 20 or 30%.
So they're just drowning in noise. And all that low comprehension just leads to crushing frustration. And then they burn out.
Yes. The guide offers a really profound counter-principle to this. It says, learning happens with clarity, not with speed.
Clarity, not speed.
Think about it. If you only grasp 20% of what you're hearing, the other 80% of that sound is just meaningless noise to your brain. It's wasted cognitive effort.
And it teaches your brain that English is confusing and fragmented.
Yes. True learning requires the brain to accurately map a sound to a meaning and to do it reliably. If the input is too fast, that reliability is just not there.
So slow listening is the deliberate strategy to ensure 100% clarity. It's more than just, hitting the slow down button on a video.
It is. The sources detail 4 specific, very practical components to this technique.
Okay, let's break them down.
The first 2 are about your mental state and your quality metric. First, you have to listen calmly. No internal pressure, no anxiety.
Okay, just relax.
Second, you must aim for understanding every single word. This is your quality assurance. If you miss a word, you rewind. You listen again.
I really appreciate that emphasis on calming the anxiety. Because listening to something you don't understand can feel like a test that you're feeling in real time.
Exactly. So you're turning the activity from a test into a meditation. The focus is purely on reception and comprehension.
Okay, and what about the other 2 components?
This is where the magic really happens. It's about internalization. The third component is you need to be feeling the sentence structure.
Feeling this structure. That sounds a bit abstract. How does a beginner do that without, analyzing all the grammar rules?
This is the genius of intuitive acquisition. When you listen slowly and clearly to sentences again and again, you stop seeing things like subject, verb, object as abstract rules, and you start hearing them as a rhythm, a natural cadence. It's almost like music. Your brain starts to recognize the pattern automatically.
So the goal isn't to consciously sit there and label the parts of speech.
Yeah.
It's to internalize the correct order until saying something out of order just sounds, wrong. It sounds wrong to your ear.
Precisely. You are bypassing that intellectual grammar checker in your head, and you're building subconscious pattern recognition. And because you are not rushing, that's the 4th point, you give your brain plenty of time for this deep processing to happen.
Let's use the example sentence from the source material to make this really practical. It's a very common and powerful one. I want to improve my English.
Right. If you hear that at native speed, the sound can be complex. The words often merge. I want to becomes I wanna. It can be a quick blur.
But with slow listening.
With slow listening, you focus on the full, clear articulation. The instruction is to listen to the slow repetition and the space between the words, like this. I want to improve my English.
That breakdown is essential. It isolates each word and it clarifies the structure. It lets the learner register that want to is the desire, improve is the action, and my English is the object.
And we can take that even further. The guide is basically implying a comparison to how we learn our first language as children.
A child doesn't learn grammar rules.
No, a child just hears simple, clear, repetitive input. Slow listening is mimicking this high-quality, reliable linguistic data stream. It is the foundation.
So the benefits really start to stack up. The source points out improved retention because you actually processed the information clearly.
Improved pronunciation because you heard the correct sounds without any distortion.
And critically, you're building those strong internalized sentence patterns that we were just talking about.
Yes. You're moving from studying about the language to truly acquiring it. This is what allows for speed later on.
So it's not that listening slowly will make you a slow listener forever.
No, absolutely not. You are building the muscle memory for the structure first. Once your brain has these clear, internalized maps from slow listening, then when speed is introduced, your brain can rapidly match the quick sounds to the solid pattern it already knows.
Speed without structure is just noise.
Speed without structure is noise. Speed with a solid foundation is communication.
That completely flips the typical beginner mindset. The key takeaway quote is so powerful in its simplicity. Slow English is strong English.
It's the ultimate antidote to that feeling of being an imposter when you're learning. It validates the need for slow, deliberate, clear understanding as the only way to build a foundation that's strong enough to handle speed later. You have to walk before you can run.
Okay, so we've covered the internal thought process, and we've covered the high-quality input. Now we get to the third pillar, the output. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's talk about shadowing.
Shadowing, yes. The sources call this the instant fluency technique. It is the active physical manifestation of everything we've just discussed.
So how is it defined?
It's defined as listening to a piece of audio and repeating it immediately. You follow the speaker's pace, their rhythm, their intonation, just like a shadow.
And the key element is that immediacy.
It is. The instructions are almost like a mental command. Do not wait too long. Do not think too much. Just open your mouth and repeat what you heard.
That lack of time for reflection, that seems to be the genius of it.
It is, because it forces you to use the language processing part of your brain that handles articulation, but it deliberately bypasses your internal editor, the translator.
There's just no time for the translation trap to get in the way.
No time at all.
Let's walk through the example from the guide. The audio speaker says, I practice English every day.
The learner should then repeat that exact phrase instantly, trying to match the rhythm. I practice English every day.
Okay, and what are the benefits here? The experts, so what, as we call it?
The benefits are multi-layered. They hit both the mechanics and the psychology at the same time. First, you are speaking without the fear of making a grammatical error.
Because the decision was already made for you by the speaker.
Yes, so it bypasses that mental block entirely. Second, you are automatically copying the correct intonation and flow of the sentence, which linguists call prosody.
Prosody. Let's unpack that for our listener. Why is copying that so important?
Prosody is basically the music of the language. It's the stress, the rhythm, the pitch. If you say, I practice English every day, and you stress it sounds natural. It emphasizes regularity.
But if you just say it in a flat, monotone way,
it sounds robotic even if the grammar is perfect. Shadowing trains your mouth muscles and your vocal cords to mimic that native rhythm, which is key to sounding natural.
And this leads to an immediate boost in confidence.
Absolutely. Success breeds success. You have just successfully produced a perfectly formed English sentence with the correct sound and prosody, even if you were just mimicking it.
And that success, when you repeat it every day, encourages you to speak more.
It does. It acts as a powerful tool to encourage thinking directly in English. You are linking the sound, the mouth movement, and the meaning, all without translation.
Now, I can imagine our listener nodding along, but also thinking, this feels ridiculous. I have to just repeat everything I hear out loud.
And that's a very valid reaction. The source material is very empathetic on this point. It acknowledges that it can feel awkward or unnatural or even a little silly at first.
It is a necessary discomfort.
It is. It's just the feeling of a new, powerful habit being formed, and improvement only follows daily, committed practice.
And this is where all three skills really merge together.
Yes. First, you listen slowly to a sentence like, I am learning English step by step. That's your high-quality input. Second, you repeat it immediately and clearly. That's the shadowing. That's the output.
And third, you internalize it. You think about when you would use that in a real conversation. And that's the thinking in English part.
That three-part system, that is the engine that drives fluency. It takes the language out of a textbook and puts it into your everyday functional toolkit.
And that framework leads us directly to the action plan. Because having the techniques is one thing, but fitting them into a busy life is another. So let's get to section 4, the 20-30-minute daily blueprint.
This is so important. The underlying philosophy here is that fluency does not come from these massive, sporadic study sessions.
Right, cramming for 5 hours on a Sunday. That's not sustainable.
It's not. Fluency comes from daily small practice. This plan is intentionally short, just 20 to 30 minutes, because high-frequency, low-duration practice is scientifically proven to be better for forming habits and for long-term memory. It reduces resistance.
Okay, so let's break it down minute by minute. We start right when you wake up. Segment 1, morning practice, just 5 minutes.
5 very strategic minutes. The action is to say simple, affirming sentences aloud the moment you wake up.
And the examples are very immediate. I woke up early. I feel fresh. Today's a good day. I will practice English today.
And the analysis here shows a double benefit. Linguistically, it forces you to speak slowly and clearly. Psychologically, it sets a positive linguistic tone for your entire day. By making English the very first thing your brain processes, you're reinforcing that habit of thinking in English before the translation trap can even wake up.
And the source insists you must do it aloud. Just thinking the phrases internally isn't enough.
Not enough, no. Internal speech does not engage the motor memory or that auditory feedback loop. It has to be spoken clearly and slowly.
Okay. Then we move on to the core input part. Segment 2. Listening practice for 5 to 10 minutes.
This is where you implement the slow listening. The instruction is to listen to slow English audio, a podcast, a simple story.
And crucially, do not multitask. This is focused attention time.
Yes, very focused. And if you need to, you pause, you rewind, you repeat. The goal is 100% comprehension.
And we immediately follow that input with output in segment 3, shadowing practice for another 5 to 10 minutes.
The action here is take a short part of the audio you just listened to and repeat it line by line. And again, we have to emphasize the instruction. Speak clearly and aloud. The source says, do not whisper.
And that's because speaking aloud is a physical skill, not just an intellectual one. It's about motor memory.
That's right. You are training the fine muscles of your mouth, your jaw, your tongue. It's like teaching your hand to play a chord on a guitar. Your muscles remember the physical shape needed to make the English sounds.
So saying the sentence, I am improving my English every day, out loud for 5 minutes, actually creates physical pathways in your brain and your mouth that will make future spontaneous speech easier.
Absolutely. And it's a very positive phrase, so it also acts as a powerful feedback mechanism.
Okay, and finally, we close the day with segment 4, night thinking practice, the last 5 minutes.
This is the crucial solidification phase. Before sleeping, the action is simply to review your day's events in English.
So those simple retrospective observations. Today I worked. I talked to my friend. I felt tired. I am happy now.
And the analysis here is that right before sleep, your brain is reviewing and categorizing the day's events, moving things from short-term to long-term memory.
So by forcing that review to happen in English, you are hijacking the brain's natural process to solidify these new language patterns.
You are making English the primary system for your memory storage and recall. It is a brilliant piece of scheduling.
It really is. It achieves the goals of all 3 techniques in these small, manageable chunks spread across the day.
And the synthesis is that this plan works because it's built on consistency. It reinforces that central idea that consistency is the key.
All right, so now that we have the schedule, we need to make sure the learner has the right tools. This brings us to section 5, the Beginner's Language Toolkit. And the argument here is very strong. Beginners should not be chasing complexity.
This is so vital. The expert analysis stresses that beginners only need maybe 3 or 4 basic grammar structures, but they need to use them correctly and confidently.
Trying to master complex tenses on day 1 just leads to cognitive paralysis.
It does. A simple sentence delivered smoothly is infinitely better than a complex sentence delivered with hesitation.
Okay, so let's talk about the 3 core grammar priorities in the sources. The first one is the simple present tense.
This is the foundation for talking about your habits, your routines, facts. The structure is the simplest. Subject plus verb. The examples are things like, I practice English, I listen daily.
And the key practice sentence is, I practice English every day.
Mastery of just this one tense means you can talk about your entire daily routine with confidence.
Okay, priority number 2, which is highlighted as very important, is the I am sentences.
Absolutely. The I am structure, whether it's with an action or an adjective, is essential. It covers feelings, identity, and what you are doing right now.
So the examples are, I am learning English, I am confident, I am improving slowly.
It gives you immediate command over expressing your internal state. If you feel tired, you can say, I am tired, no translation needed.
And the third priority is the simple past, but with a very important qualifier, very basic.
Yes. The focus here is strictly on what happened yesterday or this morning. Immediate, recent past actions. We are avoiding all the complexity of irregular verbs or perfect tenses for now.
So the examples are tailored to the routine. I practiced English yesterday. I watched a video.
And by limiting the scope, the guide ensures the learner can use it correctly and confidently and avoid the pitfalls of trying to handle too much at once.
And then there's the vocabulary component of the toolkit. prioritizing small, useful, motivating words.
Yes, we have 7 essential words here. And they are not just random words, they are concepts related to the learning process itself.
Let's review them slowly. We have improve, meaning make better.
Practice, meaning do again and again.
Slowly, meaning not fast.
Confident, meaning not afraid.
Habit, meaning something you do daily.
Fluent, meaning smooth speaking.
And focus, meaning full attention.
And the genius here is that these words are immediately tied back to those affirming sentences that the learner is supposed to be shadowing every day.
So they become part of the practice. I want to improve my English. I speak slowly and clearly. I am becoming confident.
Exactly. You're achieving multiple learning goals with one simple utterance.
So that gives the learner the tools, the schedule, and the techniques. But the journey is never just academic. It's also deeply psychological. Which brings us to Section 6, Overcoming Mental Barriers.
Yes, a guide that fails to acknowledge the emotional reality of learning really fails the learner, and this one identifies 3 specific paralyzing fears.
The first one, the most common one for everyone, is the fear of making mistakes.
And we have to reframe what a mistake even is. In language learning, mistakes are not failures. They are high-quality feedback data.
If you wait for perfection, you will wait forever.
You will. Every fluent speaker made mistakes for years. So the guide provides the essential mental armor, the affirmation you must repeat. Making mistakes is okay.
Then there's the second fear, the external one. People will laugh. This is what pushes people to whisper when they practice, or to just avoid conversations.
This is all about ego and external judgment. And the sources offer a confident reply that you should have ready. I'm learning. I am improving.
You're shifting the focus from their judgment to your own personal growth.
Yes, your journey is more important than their opinion.
And the third fear, which is so common for adult learners, is the feeling of being too late. I should have started this years ago.
This is a pure self-imposed limitation. And the motivation from the source is simple and true. Learning has no age limit. The reassurance is, it is never too late to learn.
So the final analysis in this section really synthesizes the entire guide by contrasting the myths with the reality of fluency.
We need to actively destroy those myths. Fluency does not come from just memorizing thousands of grammar rules. It does not come from learning big fancy words you will never use. And it does not come from studying for massive, unsustainable hours.
And conversely, fluency does come from the habits we've been building this whole time.
Yes. It comes from listening daily, slowly and clearly. From speaking daily, even to yourself. From repeating daily, using shadowing. And from thinking in English.
So the conclusion is almost elegantly simple. Small, focused steps every single day create big, sustainable change.
Fluency isn't a destination you reach with one giant leap. It's the inevitable result of consistent, small, focused actions.
So bringing it all together as we wrap up this deep dive, let's summarize the golden rules for our listener, the actionable takeaways that can start today.
The guide leaves us with 5 pillars. First, think in English, immediately and simply. Second, listen slowly for clarity. Third, practice shadowing out loud.
Fourth, speak without fear. And fifth, be patient with yourself. English is a skill that grows with practice.
It's not about how intelligent you are, it's about the consistency of your application.
And to send our listener off with a clear goal for their first shadowing session, the source offers one final, powerful motivational thought.
This is perhaps the most emotionally sophisticated sentence in the guide. It combines accepting your current imperfection with an absolute commitment to growth. The learner should practice this daily.
Using that I am structure.
Yes, I am not perfect, but I am improving every day.
That phrase is like a short, confident manifesto. It accepts the reality of today, the mistakes, the hesitation, but it directs all the energy toward the goal of growth.
It is the ultimate antidote to the fear of making mistakes. So as a final provocative thought for you, the listener, consider this. The true fluency journey does not start with learning new, complex vocabulary.
Or with mastering difficult grammar rules.
No, it starts with the sheer physical courage to simply repeat the easiest words aloud every single day.
It's the consistent repetition of those simple structures that actually rewires your brain.
We encourage you to find some simple English content, listen to